Today we are going to look at Genesis chapter 30, and we're right in the midst of this family circumstance and situation. Okay, so we know that Isaac is old and he's on his last days, and he decided to bless his son Esau. But we remember what happened. Rachel heard about it and decided, I'm sorry, is it Rachel? Rebecca? Rachel.
Rachel. You're right, Rachel.
No, Rebecca heard about it. It's Rebecca. Rachel is Jacob. Rebecca heard about it.
Rebecca?
And decided that she's going to go and intervene. And she told Jacob to do what? Go and disguise yourself like Esau. And we went through that whole story. He tricked Isaac, and now he's out. Esau now said because he got tricked, he going to do what? I'm going to kill him. The minute our father dies, after we mourn for him, I'm killing Jacob. This is what? This is family, ain't it?
Yes, it is.
But this ain't new. Because we can go way back to what? Cain and Abel. Okay, so and then we can see a few other things. But anyway, but Rebecca hears about this and says, all right, well, I got to find a way to get you out of here. So she tries to make like she's upset that Esau married these local women, and now wants Isaac to send Jacob away to go marry somebody from her land. But all that really is doing is getting what? Jacob away from Esau. So Esau won't kill him. Okay? So now he goes up there and he meets Rachel. And then he falls in love with Rachel. And now he's like, oh. And Laban is like, hey, why are you up here doing all this work? Why are you working for nothing? Why don't I pay you? Just name your wage. And he said, I tell you what, just allow me to marry your daughter, Rachel. And he said, fine. He said, okay, well, I'll serve you for 7 years. He serves for 7 years. They get ready to have the ceremony. They throw a festival. They get everybody out there. They're eating and drinking and just enjoying themselves. And then at the end of the festival, the celebration, the bride is to be brought in to Jacob so he can celebrate his marriage that night with his wife. And he goes in, the bride is brought in, he celebrates with his new wife. He wakes up in the morning, and guess what? It ain't the right woman. Laban done switched. Instead of bringing Rachel in, he brought in Leah. Now you say, well, what's wrong with Leah? Well, the Bible says Leah was tender-eyed, and we try to figure out, well, what does that mean? You know, we said, well, some commentators say that means she was cock-eyed. Some commentators said cross-eyed. So she was just sore to look at. She wasn't ever. It was all kinds of different things that the commentators say. The bottom line is, I never seen Leah. All I know is the Bible says that Leah had some issues when it comes down to when you look at her. It could be that she was ugly, or I don't know. But the Bible did specifically say that Rachel was beautiful and fair to look upon. So it gave it two descriptions, you know. And so, well, when Jacob woke up, he was with the tender-eyed woman and not with the beautiful woman. And he went back to Laban and said, what's going on? And he came up with this excuse. He pulled out politics on him. He goes, well, in our country, we don't allow the younger to marry before the older. So I'm like, well, show me your constitution and your amendment rules and whatever. But either way, he said, well, I tell you what, you serve me another 7 years and I'll give you Rachel. So he served another 7 years.
14 years.
So he served 14 years for his wife.
She had to be fine.
She had to be something. Good looking woman, I tell you. So now Rachel and Leah are married, and Rachel is barren. She's not having no children. Leah's popping out children every now and then. But Leah first brings out Reuben. And she named him Reuben because she said, now my husband will what? Love me. And she kept going. Actually, let me not make a mistake on this. So let me say it right. And so first she said that my husband's going to love me, which was the first mistake. Then she had, what was after Reuben? It was Simeon, right? Yeah, so they had Simeon. And what was the reason for her naming Simeon? She called him Simeon. Okay, here it is. And the Lord have, let's see, this was 29:33. And she conceived again and bare a son, and because the Lord had heard that I was hated. So the first time when she named him Reuben, she said, well, now my husband's going to what? Love me. Well, that wasn't the case either. So now, after she has a second child, she said, I'm going to call his name Simeon, because she knows she's what? Hated. All right, so, and then it says, she conceived again in verse 34 of 29 and bare a son, and it says, now this time will my husband join with me, because I have borne him 3 sons. Therefore she called his name Levi. So now she's saying, I ain't worried about him loving or hating me. I just know he understands that if he wants to have a child, he's going to have to be with me. Because Rachel ain't pushing no children out. I'm bringing the children in. So he sees me as the what? The efficient wife. She may be all beautiful and cute and all that stuff. But if he wants some sons, he's going to have to come what? To me. So she comes into realization of what her role is. So she goes, that's why she calls him what? Levi. In 35 it says, and she conceived again and bare a son, and said, now will I praise the Lord. And she called his name Judah. And that was really where she needed to be in the first place. So now, and then after that, it says she left off barren. All right, so this is the situation that we are at now. So you got Jacob married to Leah and Rachel. And keep in mind, who's the first wife?
Rachel.
No, Leah.
Leah.
Leah's the first wife.
Yeah.
So from all that aspects of the laws and stuff, and as we go through, especially when we get into the next book of Leviticus, we're going to see that the first wife had rights.
Right.
But generally, the first wife was mistreated if the husband married a second wife. Because that was the reason why he went and got a second wife, because there's something he didn't like about the first wife.
But this Old Testament and all these wives, we have to let people know now. That was under the law.
Yeah, we're going to get to that.
Okay. Sometimes people will go out and think they can get them 3 and 4.
Yeah, there are a lot of people believe that.
That's their religion.
There's a religion that actually teaches that. Yeah. So there's a lot of people that follow that philosophy. But we're going to see. The Bible will take care of all that.
That's right.
So we'll see that. So that's the circumstance that we're in now. Let's pick up this story and let's see what's going on here now between these family members.
And when Rachel saw that she bare Jacob no children, chapter 30. And when Rachel saw that she bare Jacob no children, Rachel envied her sister, and said unto Jacob,
Give me children, or else I die.
And Jacob's anger was kindled against Rachel, and he said,
Am I in God's stead, who hath withheld from thee the fruit of the womb?
And she said,
Behold, my maid Bilhah, go in unto her, and she shall bear upon my knees, that I may also have children by her.
And she gave him Bilhah her handmaid to wife, and Jacob went in unto her. And Bilhah conceived and bare Jacob a son. And Rachel said,
God hath judged me, and hath also heard my voice, and hath given me a son.
Therefore called she his name Dan. And Bilhah, Rachel's maid, conceived again, and bare Jacob a second son. And Rachel said,
With great wrestlings have I wrestled with my sister, and I have prevailed.
And she called his name Naphtali. When Leah saw that she had left bearing, she took Zilpah her maid, and gave her Jacob to wife. And Zilpah, Leah's maid, bare Jacob a son. And Leah said,
A troop cometh.
And she called his name Gad. And Zilpah, Leah's maid, bare Jacob a second son. And Leah said,
Happy am I, for the daughters will call me blessed.
And she called his name Asher. And Reuben went in the days of wheat harvest, and found mandrakes in the field, and brought them unto his mother Leah. Then Rachel said to Leah,
Give me, I pray thee, of thy son's mandrakes.
And she said unto her,
Is it a small matter that thou hast taken my husband? And wouldest thou take away my son's mandrakes also?
And Rachel said,
Therefore he shall lie with thee tonight for thy son's mandrakes.
And Jacob came out of the field in the evening, and Leah went out to meet him, and said,
Thou must come in unto me, for surely I have hired thee with my son's mandrakes.
and he lay with her that night. And God hearkened unto Leah, and she conceived, and bare Jacob the 5th son. And Leah said,
God hath given me my hire, because I have given my maiden to my husband.
and she called his name Issachar. And Leah conceived again, and bare Jacob the 6th son. And Leah said,
God hath endued me with a good dowry. Now will my husband dwell with me, because I have borne him 6 sons.
And she called his name Zebulun. And afterward she bare a daughter, and called her name Dinah. And God remembered Rachel, and God hearkened to her, and opened her womb. And she conceived, and bare a son, and said,
God hath taken away my reproach.
And she called his name Joseph, and said,
The Lord shall add to me another son.
And it came to pass, when Rachel had borne Joseph, that Jacob said unto Laban,
Send me away, that I may go unto mine own place, and to my country. Give me my wives and my children, for whom I have served thee, and let me go. For thou knowest my service which I have done thee.
And Laban said unto him, I pray thee, if I have found favor in thine eyes, tarry, for I have learned by experience that the Lord hath blessed me for thy sake. And he said, Appoint me thy wages, and I will give it. And he said unto him,
Thou knowest how I served thee, and how thy cattle was with me. For it was little which thou hadst before I came, and it is now increased unto a multitude. And the Lord hath blessed thee since my coming. And now, when shall I provide for mine own house also?
And he said, What shall I give thee? And Jacob said,
Thou shalt not give me anything. If thou wilt do this thing for me, I will again feed and keep thy flock. I will pass through all thy flock today, removing from thence all the speckled and spotted cattle, and all the brown cattle among the sheep, and the spotted and speckled among the goats, and of such shall be my hire. So shall my righteousness answer for me in time to come, when it shall come for my hire before thy face. Every one that is not speckled and spotted among the goats, and brown among the sheep, that shall be counted stolen with me.
And Laban said, Behold, I would it might be according to thy word. And he removed that day the goats that were ring-straked and spotted, and all the she-goats that were speckled and spotted, and every one that had some white in it, and all the brown among the sheep, and gave them into the hand of his sons. And he set 3 days' journey betwixt himself and Jacob, and Jacob fed the rest of Laban's flock. And Jacob took him rods of green poplar, and of the hazel and chestnut tree, and pilled white strakes in them, and made the white appear which was in the rods. And he set the rods which he had pilled before the flocks in the gutters and the watering troughs, when the flocks came to drink, that they should conceive when they came to drink. And the flocks conceived before the rods, and brought forth cattle ring-straked, speckled, and spotted. And Jacob did separate the lambs, and set the faces of the flocks toward the ring-straked, and all the brown in the flock of Laban. And he put his own flocks by themselves, and put them not unto Laban's cattle. And it came to pass, whensoever the stronger cattle did conceive, that Jacob laid the rods before the eyes of the cattle in the gutters, that they might conceive among the rods. But when the cattle were feeble, he put them not in, so the feeble were Laban's, and the stronger Jacob's. And the man increased exceedingly, and he had much cattle, and maidservants, and menservants, and camels, and asses.
All right. Now, there we go.
Can I say something before we
Yeah, sure.
go any further? Y'all notice this is a long chapter, and I just want to ask, is it all right if we finish? I mean, in case, because, see, I don't know if I'll be here the following Sunday. So, I would like to finish it, because I know you're gonna be doing so I'm just saying.
You want to get through it.
Yeah.
We don't.
All right, just say it's not all right. If we don't get through it, it's fine, but.
We're gonna do our best. We're gonna do our best to get through it. All right? Yes, we are.
I mean.
And I'm not gonna try to rush it either.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay. We're gonna take our time.
All right, thank you.
We'll see how we go.
All right.
All right.
I'm
So
ready now.
So we're looking here now. We're picking up. We done already kind of gave a little preamble about this family, so we know what's going on. So Leah done brought all these children out, right? And we done seen that the last one she brought out was Judah. There's something significant about Judah, and I think it was interesting that when she had that child, she said, "Now I will what? Praise the Lord." Therefore, she's gonna call it Judah. What's the tribe that Jesus comes from? Judah. All right, so this is important to keep in mind. So there's a little foretelling, right, even right there, even with the naming of the child, that's who Jesus, the line that Jesus is going to come from. So we pick up in chapter 30, verse 1, and it says, "And when Rachel saw that she was barren, Jacob no children, Rachel envied her sister." Now this is the beautiful woman, right? This is the woman that everybody, everybody look at and go, wow. And Rachel is the one that got the issue that people look at and go, well, there's something tender-eyed or something right about Leah. All right, so Leah was the one that was kind of a little bit messed up. But now Rachel is what? Envying her sister Leah. And said to Jacob, now she goes to her husband, "Give me children or else I die." Now let's pause there. What I found out in reading this is that Rachel is somewhat of a prophetess. Because she said, "Give me children or I what? I die." That's exactly what's going to happen to her. See, we see her bringing forth the child Joseph. But she's going to conceive again. And her last child that she has is Benjamin. But she's going to do what? She's going to die in childbirth, giving birth to Benjamin. So it's interesting that her whole statement came out of what? Her own mouth. Give me children or I die. Well, this is what's going to happen, unfortunately, to her. She didn't know this. I don't even think Jacob understood it. But she spoke her own circumstance. But look at what Jacob said in verse 2. And Jacob's anger was kindled against Rachel. So Rachel's upset. Now Jacob's upset because why are you coming to me? Look at what he says. His anger was kindled against Rachel and said, "Am I in God's stead, who have withheld from thee the fruit of the womb?" He's like, it ain't up to me. I come into you just like I come into Leah. But I can't control whether you conceive or she conceive. Am I God? Am I the one that does the miraculous of making the womb bring forth life? And she said, "Behold, my maid Bilhah, go in unto her, and she will bear upon my knees, that I may also have children by her." Now, a couple things we want to point out here. Number one, where have we seen this before?
With Abraham.
With Abraham.
Yeah.
All right? And when Sarah couldn't conceive, and then Sarah said, "Well, I'm going to give you my maid." And the thing I want to point out there is that was a custom thing. If you were a maid or slave girl, and you had the person in charge or ruling over you, they could have you do things in their stead. So you would go into that person's husband and you would have a child, but that child would not be considered yours. The child would be considered the woman master's child. And so this is the line now that Rachel's going in. Rachel has gotten to what? Desperate mode. All right? And so she's going to have this child regardless. Okay? So she goes and she pulls that card of using my mistress, using my maidservant as your person. And it says in verse 4 of chapter 30, "And she gave Bilhah her handmaid to wife, and Jacob went in unto her, and Bilhah conceived and bare a son." Now, keeping in mind, what is Jacob's philosophy in this? Let these women do whatever they want to do. He's just going in, and I'll let y'all decide. And he ain't fighting it. He ain't trying to pull rank. He ain't trying to stop any of it. He just think it's all just wonderful. All right? No problem. also in verse 6, it says that, let me see, that Bilhah conceived and bare a son, and Rachel said, this is what Rachel said about the son that Bilhah brings forth. God judge me. All right. Do you want God to judge you? All right. I want God to be what? Merciful to me. I want God to be gracious to me. I want God to cover me. All right. But she said, God have judged me and have also heard my voice and have given me a son. Therefore she called his name Dan. Now I'm going to pause here, because we're going to see as we go through scripture that Dan is a problem. And all of his lineage, everybody that comes after Dan, is a problem. Now I said I'm going to take my time. I am going to take my time. I'm going to find this in the book of Revelation. And when it's, because a lot of times you're going to see descriptions of the tribes of Israel. And I want to see if I can find this real quick. It has listings, and sometimes you're going to see names that are added and names that are not added. I should have pulled this up. Let's see, the New Jerusalem. Here we go. Okay, chapter 21. Oh boy, let's see. Can I do this quick here? 12:4. Okay. I'm looking for the listing of the tribes. Well, the point I'm trying to make while I'm searching this, I'm going to kind of talk while I try to find it. If I don't find it, there's no big deal. But you're going to see a listing in the book of Revelation of all the tribes that are honored in the New Jerusalem. And he gives a list of all the tribes. And what you find out is that there's one tribe that's not listed. And that one tribe that's not listed in that list is the tribe of Dan. All right. And I'll find it some other time, I'm sure. I won't. But that's the point I'm trying to make, is Dan is a problem. And Dan is going to be one of the first tribes that is going to introduce idolatry in the nation. They're going to work and serve other gods perpetually, continuously. Every one of the tribes will have an issue. But Dan is the one that's going to wholeheartedly go out against the things of God. So we'll see that. And you can see from the very beginnings that Dan was brought about.
Tribes of Judah? Is that what you're looking for?
Well, yeah, I done got out of that. I'll bring it up another time. But
It has all of them.
What you're looking at?
It's Revelation 7:5.
Let's see.
If that's what you're looking for.
That might be the one. Let me see.
I'm not sure.
7:5. Yeah, that's it. So Revelation 7:5, and it says, and this is when he calls forth the tribes to seal them, to protect them during the tribulation period. And it says, of the tribe of Judah, there was sealed 12,000. That's the 144,000, right? And of the tribe of Reuben, there was sealed 12,000. And if you notice that they listed what tribe first? Judah. Of the tribe of Gad, there was sealed 12,000. And then you see Asher. And then you see Naphtali. Then you see Manasseh. Now, we haven't been introduced to Manasseh yet. We'll get introduced to Manasseh, which actually deals with the child of Joseph. Joseph's going to be split in two tribes. But anyway, so you see Manasseh. Then you see Simeon. Then you see Levi. Then you see Issachar. Then you see Zebulun. Then you see Joseph. All right. Then you see Benjamin. But what you don't see is the tribe of what? Dan. Dan did not get sealed, as part of the 144,000. Thank you, sir, for finding it. All right. So, in verse 7, it says, Bilhah, Rachel's maid, conceived again and bare Joseph a second son. All right. And Rachel said, look at what she says, with great what? Wrestling. She's what? Fighting.
Fighting.
All right. So instead of this being a family where we work what? Together. We're fighting what? Against one another. This is exactly what the enemy wants. Even in the presence of God, we are still what? Fighting against one another. All right? And we got to find a way to just be good to people regardless. All right? Find ways to just allow my actions to bless somebody else. What? Regardless. And knowing that even when you do that, you're still going to find yourself sometimes doing what? Wrestling. All right? The scripture, though, tells us that we wrestle not against what? Flesh and blood. What are you really fighting against?
Principalities and wickedness.
You're really fighting against the enemy, the spiritual enemy. It's all ultimately a spiritual battle. You're fighting against Satan and his imps and all the stuff that he tries to produce. And you're fighting against the whole nature of sin. Sin produces all of this. And we are living in a world of what? Sin. And I try to always illustrate that if we lived in the ocean, it's like we tell a fish, try to tell a fish not to get wet. Well, but the fish live in the what? It's living in the water. All right. So how does it not get wet? It's going to have to, the only way for it not to get wet, it has to have what on it? Some kind of what?
Some kind of
covering. Same thing with us. We living in a world of sin. And if you don't have a what on you? A covering, guess what's going to be on you all the time, 24/7, 365 days a week, a year? You're going to have what? Sin. On you, all around you. Unless you can be covered by the Spirit of God. Then you won't be affected by the penalty of sin. But you still are living in a sinful world. All right. So we always got to keep that in mind. And so, and that's going to always produce what? The wrestling. And we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers and wickedness in high places. All right. But she says, I wrestle. She's wrestling with her sister, my sister, and I have prevailed. And she called his name what? Naphtali. Right? And the thing about Naphtali, you'll see, is that Naphtali is noted for having very beautiful women. Now, I find it interesting that Rachel was noticed as being what kind of a woman? Beautiful. But then now, this son that was born to her is going to have the reputation for having what? Beautiful women. But keeping in mind that who bore the son actually? Bilhah. Not Rachel. But yet that same trend followed through that. All right, look at verse 9. And when Leah saw she had left barren, she took Zilpah, her maid, and gave her Jacob to wife. So now Leah's going to do what? The same thing. Because she feels the wrestling. I see Rachel's wrestling with me. I feel the battle. I haven't been able to produce any more children. And so now she's going to do the same thing. So, but keeping in mind, that while all this is happening, the scripture told us earlier that God told Jacob, I will what? Be with you. And I will. So in the midst of all of this, God is allowing us to be as knuckleheadish and as idiotic as we can be. But yet God is still there. But he has to allow you to be just foolish sometimes. Just so you can see yourself. See, God is not the kind of God that's going to say, I'm never going to let you make a mistake. God's the kind of God that says, I'm going to let you make all the mistakes you can within a certain boundary. Just to show you why you should what? Listen to me. So I have to let you make them. So in making mistakes sometimes, and we as parents have to recognize sometimes, you know what? You got to let go. Go ahead. Do it. You know, I know it's going to end up wrong, but go ahead and let people discover. Because why? There's some things that you just got to learn yourself. And God does that with us. He tells us through his word all the time about what we should and should not do. But guess what? We don't listen. We do it anyway. So he's allowing us, but that still doesn't mean God's not with you. But he's trying to allow you to, he's going to let you get your hurt, let you get your pain, and we can go through Old Testament patriarch after Old Testament patriarch. Different person, another person. You can go to Moses, we can go to David, Adam. They all got, well, I'm going to let you mess up. All right? And so we could spend a lot of time on that, but I think you get the point. So here's Naphtali now. And Leah saw, so when Leah saw that she was bearing, she had left off bearing, she took Zilpah, her maid, and gave it to Jacob. And Zilpah, her maid, bare Jacob a son. And Leah said, a troop cometh. What's a troop? It's a gang. It's a military. It's a fight. She's doing what? She's battling. I got a troop. I got a whole bunch of folk. A troop cometh. And when you see a troop cometh, you either get ready to fight or you surrender. And so she said, so she called his name what? Gad. Right. So these children are being named for a variety of different spiteful reasons. Only one child was named out of just thankfulness to God. And that was who?
Jacob.
Judah.
Judah.
All right. That's the only one that had the so far. All right. But look, verse 12. And then Zilpah, Leah's maid, bare Jacob a second son. And Leah said, happy am I, for the daughters will call me what? Blessed. And she called his name Asher. All right. Now, she is now looking at what? Herself. Not thinking God. She's like, okay, no one ever called me beautiful. Because Leah was not the what? The beautiful one. But she now feels that people are going to call her what? Blessed. Because I'm able to produce all these children. All right. And so she called his name Asher. And she's feeling happy. I might not have been beautiful, but I'm very functional. I'm a person that can produce great sons, but keeping in mind, she's not producing them anymore. They're coming through her what? Her handmaid. But she's like, well, my handmaid is not bringing out any daughters. And back then, that was the key. Can you bring forth sons? Daughters weren't looked at as like, okay, you had a daughter, let's move on to the next one. Because they weren't looked at as valuable. We'll talk more about that. I ain't saying that was the way that God designed it. That's just the way it was. All right? So she's happy because I'm bringing forth sons. And even when I give my handmaid, she brings forth sons. All right? Verse 14. So here we hit this little story here. It says, and Reuben went into in the days of the harvest and found mandrakes. Now, mandrakes were considered to be an aphrodisiac. That means a means of eating something that would be promoting the ability to bring forth a child. It kind of enhances the human reproductive system. Right? So it was believed to have that kind of power and that kind of influence. And so he went out and he found some mandrakes in the field and brought them unto his mother Leah. And Rachel said to Leah, give me, I pray thee, of your son's mandrakes. So she's like, listen, Leah, you don't need these mandrakes. You don't already have all these children. But Leah had also what? Left off bearing. So she's looking at these mandrakes like, well, maybe I can start bearing again. And she said unto her, is it a small matter that thou hast taken my husband? So Leah says, Rachel, you've taken my what? My husband. Because Leah is looking, she is the what? First wife. Regardless as to how the circumstances, yeah, maybe our dad tricked Jacob, but I'm still the what? First wife of record. And so she's like, and now you done stole him because now I know he cares for you more than he cares for what? For me. So she said, is it a small matter that you have taken my husband? And would thou take away my son's mandrakes also? So now you want to take away the thing that's going to make me have an opportunity to be fertile again? You're going to do that too? And look at what Rachel says. And Rachel said, therefore he shall lie with thee tonight for thy son's mandrake. So what Rachel did is make a deal. Mm-hmm. You give me your son's mandrakes, and we will agree. I'll be unavailable. And when Jacob comes in, he has to be with you tonight. He won't come into me because, I know he loves me and I know I'm the real pretty woman, but I'll won't be available, and now he'll have to go in unto you. Look at this stuff that's in the Bible. Is this a soap opera or what?
Right.
I mean, you could make one of those little Netflix miniseries about this, and then people that love the Bible won't even watch it because they'll be like, that movie is too nasty. I don't want to watch
She
this.
does the same thing Laban does.
Birds in the feather.
So look at verse 16. And Jacob came out of the field in the evening. He's done doing work. He's working out there with Laban's sheep and ox and goats and so forth. In the evening. And Leah went out to meet him and said, thou must come in unto me. For surely I have what? I have hired thee. And I paid for you with my son's mandrakes. And he lay with her that night. So that night he went in with Leah. 17. And God hearkened unto Leah, and she conceived. Now wait a minute. Who took the mandrakes? Rachel.
Rachel.
But who conceived? Leah. Interesting, right? And Leah conceived and bare Jacob a what? Fifth son. And Leah said, God has given me my hire. In other words, I paid for this son. All right? I paid for this. Because I have given him my maid, to my husband. And she called his name what? Issachar. So basically, Issachar, I paid for this. I earned this. Be careful. I don't ever want God to give me what I earn. Because the Bible says the wages of sin is what?
Death.
Anybody want to get paid for that? I don't want to get paid for that. No. I want God's what? Grace and mercy. All right. So Issachar is like, hey, I paid for this. This is my hire, and I have received my hire, and I'm calling his name Issachar. And she conceived again and bare Jacob the sixth son. So now, how many tribes are there? There's what? 12 tribes. Leah herself had borne how many? Six. Half of them. And then her handmaid bore how many? Two. So Leah specifically gave half a dozen children. And then relatively through Bilhah, she gave another 2. So that's 8 of the 12 come from Leah's line. All right. So Leah said, God hath endued me with a great dowry. Now my husband will dwell with me. She didn't say my husband will what? Love me like the first time. She goes, now he will dwell with me. Because now he realizes that I'm what? I'm producing sons again. And she called his name Zebulun. I'm efficient. If you wanted son, once again, you come to what? You come to me. So this is what she believed. My son, when my husband comes into me, he knows I will bring forth him a what?
Son.
A son. So she names him Zebulun. So look what happens right after she says that. She makes this statement, I'm a son-making wife, right? Look at verse 21. And after that, she bare a daughter. Oh, she done interrupted her streak, right? She thought she was going to bring forth another son, and now she bring forth a daughter and called her name Dinah. We're going to keep in mind Dinah. Dinah's going to show up again down the road. We're going to see some stuff about her in a few more chapters. 22. It says, and God remembered Rachel, and God hearkened unto her and opened her womb. Oh, wait a minute. The mandrakes didn't do anything?
No.
So the person that gave away the mandrakes ended up having what? 3 more children. 2 sons and a what? And a daughter. But then Rachel, who got the mandrakes, didn't have anyone born to her during that time. Not through her, nor through her maidservant. But look at verse 22. But God remembered. You see, and that's the key. If Rachel would do what we all should do, and that's go to God with our problems, go to God with our issues, go to God with our circumstances and our hurt feelings and all that. We do that and watch God work out the issues and work out the problems. But God remembered Rachel, verse 22 says, and God hearkened to her voice and opened her womb. Remember when Rachel went to Jacob and said, give me children lest I what? Die? And Jacob's response, am I in God's stead? Am I the one that's withholding children from you? It's not me. But now God had remembered her and God opened her womb. 23, and she conceived and bare a son and said, God hath taken away my reproach. That's a good statement. She gives God the credit. All right, she didn't credit the mandrakes. She credited God. And she called his name what? Joseph. Now we're going to see a whole lot about Joseph. Joseph is a good kid. You ever have some children? Some children are just good. You know, they're just good children. You know, they just out there just doing what they got to do, man. And for whatever reason, they just got the right aspect. They ain't trying to fight. They ain't trying to manipulate. They're not trying to scheme. They're just trying to know what God is all about, right? He's just a good child. So we're going to see Joseph some more as we go forward. All right. And said, the Lord shall add to me another son. Here she is again being prophetic. She bore Joseph and said, God's going to add to me what? Another son. That is true. But then when we put her two prophetic statements together, God shall add to me another son. And then the other statement she said, give me a child lest I what? Die. When you put those two together, when she has another son, she shall die. Okay? It's interesting, right?
Be careful what you ask for.
That's true. 25. And it came to pass when Rachel had borne Joseph that Jacob said unto Laban, send me away. So now what Jacob is saying, listen, Laban, I done helped you build your little flocks and herds. In other words, I've helped this business grow. It's time for me to now start my what? My own business. He said, send me away. So that I may go on my own place. He wants his own, and to my country. So he wants to go back to where he came from and start his own thing. 26. Give me my wives and my children, for whom I have served thee, and let me go, for thou knowest my service which I have done to thee. So he's like, I've really helped you. I worked for you for these years, these 14 years, helping you build your flocks. Now let me go, and I will start building for my own self. 27. You think Laban's going to go for that?
No.
Of course not. Not Laban. Laban's already got a scheme up his sleeve. And Laban said unto him, I pray thee, if I have found favor in thy eyes, tarry. In other words, stay. Tarry, for I have learned by experience that God has blessed me for thy sake. So Laban's basically saying, I recognize that yes, I have been blessed. My cattle, my herds have been multiplied, but it's because of you. You did it. But now he's making another very interesting prophetic statement. Who's allowing Laban's flocks to grow? God. Through whose hands? Through Jacob's hand. Well, that's the equation. The flocks are growing through Jacob's what? Care. Okay? So let's keep going. Let's see what happens. All right, so 28. And he said, appoint me thy wages. So this is Laban. He's saying, tell me what you want, and I will give it you. You give me your price. Tell me how much you want to make, and I'll pay that to you. And he said unto him, thou knowest how I have served thee. This is Jacob saying, he knows how I served you, and how thy cattle was with me, for it was little which thou hadst before I came. So even Jacob recognized you didn't have a whole lot. Your cattle wasn't producing until I got here. And it is now increased unto a multitude. And the Lord has blessed thee since my coming. So now even Jacob is saying it. The Lord blessed you, Laban, because of what? My coming. And now when shall I provide for my own house also? So he goes, all that I'm doing, I know is going to you. But God has blessed me. But the blessings that God has blessed me with are going to what? To you. Laban. So he goes, I want to provide for my own house also. All right, verse 31. And he said, what shall I give thee? And Jacob said, thou shalt not give me anything. So he says, I don't want you to what? Give me anything. He knows that he's been blessed by who? By God. All right. If thou wilt do this thing for me. So if you do this for me, I will again feed and keep thy flock. So now what Jacob is thinking, before I'm just going to leave. But now I'll make a deal with you. I'm going to stay, but I'm going to at least have flocks that are called mine. I know that previously I worked for these flocks, and all the flocks now belong to who? To Laban. So now let's make a deal. If I'm going to stay here, I'm still going to stay here, but I'm going to be earning my own what? Flocks. So there's going to, but how do I identify my flocks versus your flocks? So he comes up with a scheme on how we're going to be able to identify mine versus yours. And he says, and I will pass through all the flocks today, removing all of the speckled and all of the brown cattle and all of the among the sheep, and the spotted and speckled among the goats, of that which shall be my hire. So basically what he's saying is that anything that's spotted or speckled or ring straight or have any kind of design in their covering, in their skin, those one will take away. All right? And he allows those to go to Laban. And leave me with all the plain colored, just the solid colored sheep and goats and all those. And then this way, if any are born, well, let me keep reading. Verse 34. And Laban said, behold, I would it might be according to thy word. Look at 35. And he removed that day the he goats that were ring straight and spotted, and all the she goats that were speckled and spotted, and every one that had some white in it, so any kind of white spot or speckle in it, and all the brown among the sheep. All right, so there were any sheep that were brown, because sheep was supposed to be what? White. So any brown so anything that was a little odd colored, we're going to remove it and give them to unto the hands of his son. He gave them to his son. So Laban gave all those to his sons, but look what else he did. Verse 36. And set 3 days' journey betwixt himself and Jacob fed the rest of Laban's flock. So Laban said, fine, Jacob, we're going to do that. But Laban is still what? Scheming. So he took all the discolored herds, and he gave them to his sons and told them, sons, take these sheep, take all these cattle, take all these herds, and I want you to travel with them 3 days away from it. So I don't want any of them accidentally wandering back and mating with some of the other sheep. And that's how they can introduce this spotted sheep again, or spotted goats again, into the herd. So that left Jacob with all the what? Plain colored herds. So 37. And Jacob took a rod. Now, later on we're going to find out, you're going to see the mechanism that Jacob is using. But two things we're going to recognize. We already know that both Laban and Jacob has admitted, that has confessed that God blessed the sheep because of who? Jacob. So we're going to see now a mechanism that Jacob is going to use. It's not this mechanism that he's using that's producing the sheep. God is allowing him to do all this, but who's blessing his efforts? God. It's not this. So if you go out and say, well, I'm going to go down to some cattle down in Texas and show the guy how to produce certain colored cattle by using this method, it ain't going to work like that. But this is just showing what he did. But he understood that I'm doing this, but it's actually going to be God that blesses that what? The effort. Yeah. So look at what he does. And Jacob took rods of green, poplar, and of hazel and of chestnut trees, and peeled the white stripes in them, and made the white appear which was in the rod. So basically what he did, he took some rods and he kind of peeled some of it so the rods would look what? Two-tone colors. All right? And he set those rods that he had peeled before the flocks in the gutters of the watering trough. So he took these spotted rods and he put them near where they go to water and where they would go to drink. All right. And so in verse 39 it says, and the flocks conceived before the rods and brought forth cattle ring straight, speckled, and spotted. And Jacob did separate the lambs that were from the face of the flock towards the ring straight, and all of the brown of the flock of Laban's. So what Jacob is doing now, I see some herds that are born that are spotted and ring strapped and spotted, and speckled, and I'm gonna keep those away from Laban's. And so he's manipulating now his own self. And he put his own flocks by themselves and put them not into Laban's cattle. And it came to pass, whenever the stronger cattle did conceive, that Laban laid the rods before the eyes. So he's saying this rod that he was utilizing, and we're going to see another rod being used later on in the book of Exodus. Who has that rod? Moses. All right. So now he's using this rod as a means of allowing his spotted and speckled and ring straight cattle to be the stronger cattle. All right, but keeping in mind, this ain't no magical potion. This isn't no thing that you can just go out and reproduce. Who's with Jacob? God. So God is using what Jacob is doing and what? Sending his blessings upon it. All right, so he's putting these rods near the places where they come and gather, and all the stronger cattle, he's putting the rods near them. All right, that he created and made. It says, verse 42, but when the cattle were feeble, he put them not in. So the feebler were Laban's, and the stronger were Jacob's. And the man increased exceedingly, and had much what? Cattle, and maidservants, and men servants. Well, why do you need maidservants and men servants? Well, you need the men servants because you need to have more people to take care of the what? Animals. The herd. All right, and when you bring the men in, they're gonna come in with their wives, and they're gonna have children. So you're gonna have men servants and what? And maid servants. All right, and cattle and asses. So he not only had the herds, but he also had the cattle and he had the donkeys. So now all of a sudden, look at this. This man is being what? He's being blessed. Initially, he wanted to leave, and when he was gonna leave, he was gonna leave with just his what? His wife and his children. All right. But now Laban says, no, don't leave. Stick around. I know I've been blessed because of you. Now what Laban didn't recognize, this was going to backfire on him. So Laban is just thinking, I'm just going to keep on getting more cattle, more herds and everything. But that's not what happened. Because Jacob made that agreement. So now we're going to make an identification. All the spotted are mine, all the plain are yours. And guess what happened? All the cattle that were born were what? Spotted and speckled. And so now look at how he's increased. And so, but who's doing this? God. God's doing this. So the thing we can keep in mind, a lot of times when we're trying to fight, because sometimes people manipulate against you. Some people try to do things. The key is what God told Jacob when we were studying, I think 2 or 3 chapters before, when Jacob was going through the wilderness, when he was running from Esau. And he said, God was in this place and I knew it not. God told Jacob that what? I am what? With you. And that's the key. See, if God's with you, that don't mean you won't struggle. That won't mean that you won't face feeling disappointed or feeling like things ain't happening the way I want them to happen. That ain't got nothing to do with God being what? With you. It's just the matter is, will you just continue to acknowledge that God is with me? And then keep going forward. Keep going. Amen. Don't quit because it's difficult. Don't quit because it's hard. Don't quit because people don't seem to, you're worried about somebody might take advantage of me, somebody might do it. The key is God with you? Because if God is with you, then when it's all said and done, who's moving all the pieces anyway? God. And God says, I'm going to make all this stuff work together for your what? Good. You just got to make sure that when God is with you, that you are with God. That's the key. That's the relationship. Everything else will fall in place. Amen. Yes, sir. See, that's the whole problem.
I say what I'm not gonna do. See, I know in my heart if she called me, I'm gonna go right back up there.
Right.
I mean, I don't want to, but I know if she calls, I'm going back up there
Right.
because I don't want to see her.
Right. And the key that you got to keep in mind, and I'm glad nobody told you to do that. We all said, "Yep, you will be right, not going back up there again." But if God puts it in your heart to go back up there, you better go back up there. And you know why? Because she didn't pay you a dime, did she? Didn't even want to
Say thank you.
say thank you, and didn't even want to take you home.
See, that's what hurts the most.
But let me put the punchline on this. Who ultimately pays you anyway?
God.
So now what God is doing is kind of getting your attention, almost forcing you to stop looking at that for your gain and look to Him. But then He also then just now what you just said. You said it with your own mouth. I know if she called me, I'm probably gonna go back up there again. But then that's fine, because see, I'm not gonna tell you to go back up there again, because I'm gonna tell you let it go, man, because she's using you. But then see, that's the difference between me and God. See, God will put in your heart. It don't matter whether she's using you. It don't matter if they manipulating and treating you bad, because if I put in your heart to go help her, then you do it, because the payment's not going to come from her. It's going to come from who? It's going to come from God. And God's going to allow other things to come into your life that you're going to look at as going, wow, this was wonderful. But then when they come in out of no place, out of what? Wow, I know what. Just remember, God don't owe any bills. He pays all His bills.
Amen.
Right? So if He tells you to do something and He says, I will pay you, you're going to get paid. You can be guaranteed of that. But then He pays us with abundance. He pays us with joy. He pays us with love. He pays us with sound mind. He pays us with peace. He gives all that to us. Right? And then a variety of other things that we can spend all day here talking about. But that's the key. And so now you look at here, Laban, who is good. Laban is a good trickster. You see, this guy, he done sit back and he done figured it all out, how he's going to. And Laban, and that trickster aspect is typifies the nature of Satan, where he's like always trying to be your what? Your friend.
Right.
But he's really trying to what? Manipulate. Keep in mind, we'll close with this. When Satan comes through the Antichrist, we use the word Antichrist because sometimes some people will think Antichrist meaning he's nothing like Christ. Well, it's not really what that means. Antichrist means Christ-like. He's going to come like Christ, which is why he's going to be able to deceive a lot of people. Because a lot of people are going to see him as a Messiah type. So he comes tricking, not trying to come as the monster. He's trying to come as, if you believe in God, then here I am. I'm the substitute. So he comes as a substitute. You have to look at the Antichrist as like counterfeit money. All right? Counterfeit money looks like the real deal.
Amen.
Now, there was a counterfeiter that actually didn't make counterfeit plates. They went and stole the actual plates that were used to make the money, and made the money from the real plates that they stole. So this is money made the exact same way that the government would make it.
Amen.
But what's the difference?
It's counterfeit.
It's still counterfeit. Why? It's made with the same plate,
No,
the
it
same paper.
But it wasn't made by the government.
It wasn't made by the government. The government didn't what? Authorize it.
So it's counterfeit.
So even though it's made with the same stuff. And so the Antichrist is going to come with the same kind of language. It's going to have the same kind of, going to be in this, just like Paul said. He said, I know that after my departure shall arise from you, talking about God walking people, are going to come out what? Wicked individuals that love not the things of God, but love the things for themselves. I know that when I depart shall men arise from among you that will be self-serving and wicked and so forth. And I'm paraphrasing, that ain't exactly how he said it. It's in the book of Acts. But he said, but I know that's going to happen. And so that happens. And so Laban comes out and says, I'm all for you, man. Come on in, do what you got to do. But Laban was always looking out for who? Himself. And God knew that. But who was with Jacob? God. And that's the key. Now, those are the things that we have to sometimes look at. And sometimes it's difficult because we can't take the mathematics and show it and put it in the test tube and repeat it. All we can do is read it in the Bible and what? And believe it.
Amen.
That's why the Bible says without faith it's impossible to please him. Because you got to believe this. Because if you don't believe it, it ain't going to work for you. Well, then give me the evidence. I can't put this in the test tube and give you the evidence. I can't get the mathematical formulas and show you how this works the same way every time. It don't. Even when Jesus was on the earth, when he healed people, he didn't heal people the same way every time. He healed some people by just touching them. He healed other people by spitting on the ground and making mud, slapping on their face. And said, now go and what? Go and wash. So you got to do what? You just got to believe and trust it. And if you believe and trust it, it will work for you. If you don't believe and trust it, it won't work for you.
Amen.
Right? And then you may have to learn the hard way, which we're going to see a lot of that happening in here too. Where God's going to say, well, I'm going to teach you, but I'm going to teach you the hard way. We're going to study Samson. And we're going to see what happens with him. All right? But he had to learn what? The hard way. And even David had to learn the hard way. All right, so we're going to stop there. Any other comments or questions? We got through it, brother.
Yes.
All right, so we'll stop there.